All right, welcome. If you're still in the hallway, come on in. We'll kick off the afternoon session, the breakouts. Hi, my name is Mark Guerrero, Los Angeles, California. Pleasure to meet all of you. A lot of familiar faces, many new faces. If you're new to Evolve, hope you're having a blast. Today, this afternoon, we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers. Just so you know, as opposed to previous years where we'd have 5 sessions, we've got 4, so we've compacted it. We want to make it short and sweet so that by the 4th session, you still got lots of energy and are engaged. And just so you know, highly recommend to attend all 4 of them. So at the end of the breakout sessions today, in this room, we'll be exploring AI. In the other room, Google's going to be exploring topics as well. So definitely good speakers on both sides. So we're going to start things off focused on IoT. We've got 2 leading thought leaders addressing the topic. So John Rossman, author of The Amazon Way on IoT, as well as Rich Hillebrecht, who is the CIO and CISO at Riverbed. So if you can give a warm round of applause for John, we'll kick things off.
Hey, thank you. Anybody starts drooling out there right after lunch, we're going to shake you a little bit. I'm John Rossman. I'm a partner at Alvarez & Marsal. I work primarily with my clients on digital strategy and scaling digital operations. Prior to A&M, I was at Amazon. I got to run 2 businesses at Amazon. I launched and scaled the third-party marketplace, which is third-party selling at Amazon.com. Today, that's over 50% of all units shipped and sold. And I also ran the enterprise services business, where we ran other large retailers' e-commerce infrastructure for them. As I transitioned from Amazon into my client work, I started to see the impact of all the strategies and mindsets and attitudes that we had at Amazon in helping my clients make change. And that's really been the inspiration for both the books I wrote. So the IoT book, I had a client I was doing some digital strategy with, and I couldn't find anything that helped the business leader answer the simple question, how do I think through what my IoT strategy and plan should be? So my goal with the book, and my goal today, is to give you some simple questions and some simple frameworks so that you can think through that for yourself, okay? So first, what is IoT, right? So on one layer, IoT is the technology, the sensors, the cloud computing, things like that. But really on the other sense, it's really about the opportunity to take the analog world and give it a digital shadow. When I was at Amazon, we would always talk about the natural advantage that our business had being an e-commerce business because we could measure so much more in the business. And IoT really helps level the playing field between traditional analog businesses and e-commerce and digital-first businesses. So think about IoT as creating a digital shadow for the analog world. So I think the solution chain or the pattern of technologies is pretty common. Probably not going to be any great insights here for you. Starts with an object, sensor to really collect the data and the events. Then there's typically some type of local topology and then cloud topology. We do data aggregation, analytics, algorithms, optimizations around it. We feed those back into the products and the events, but we also integrate it into other back-end systems. One of the principles we always had at Amazon was really 2 principles around that I think are worth mentioning here. First is, even if we didn't understand how we were going to use the data, we collected it. We just knew that having data was a valuable thing. So my first encouragement is, even if you don't know how you're going to use the data, collect it. And the second principle was we were always striving for real-time capabilities, real-time systems, 0 latency. Because having data and events in real time, it allows for much different innovation capabilities and use cases than having latency in systems. But really, I think what's so interesting about this entire solution chain is that each and every step is undergoing a rapid transformation, a rapid evolution of both operational suitability as well as cost affordability. And that's really what's igniting the opportunity behind IoT. And so building your IoT plan doesn't start with figuring out what the solution chain is. The IoT plan starts with asking the question, what's the valuable business problem that I need to solve? And that's really what I help answer in the book, or give you the framework to help answer for yourself in the book. So who here played basketball growing up? Anybody here? Yeah, so I'm an old guy. When I was playing basketball, they probably don't teach this concept anymore, but when I was playing basketball, we learned about the triple threat position. And the triple threat position in basketball was that from one position, an offensive player could dribble, pass, or shoot, therefore leaving themselves the most options going forward and putting the defense in the least advantageous position. When you start thinking about how IoT can impact your business, think about it in this sense. IoT can help you improve a customer experience, IoT can help you improve operational effectiveness, and IoT can help you build new business models. But from any one of those, you'll always find yourself seeing and finding additional opportunities. So you want to do things with a journey map in mind, and you want to do things with an architecture that lets you transcend beyond one particular use case. So let's walk through some examples, sometimes from Amazon, sometimes from some other companies, of using IoT to improve customer experience, using IoT to improve operations, and using IoT to build new business models. So, improving the customer experience with IoT. So Amazon's journey really started with this device called the Dash Wand. Never got out of beta. It's primarily a scenario within the pantry, lets a customer scan, take a photo, or talk to reorder an item. Never went out of beta. Quickly transitioned to the Amazon Dash button. Who here has a Dash button? Great. I asked somebody at another show, and I asked her what it was that she had, and she got all embarrassed. It was for Charmin toilet paper, so I don't know why she got so embarrassed. But literally hundreds of brands have these. It's a great brand presentation in the kitchen, in the pantry, right? Whether you actually use the button or not, it is a great brand presentation. The next version of the Dash button is actually embedded in products, and so the customer doesn't even have to reorder. So the Brita water filter, based on the actual water flow through the filter and cleanliness of the filter, will reorder itself. And the spokesman for Brita has a great statement, and the statement is this: the moment of running out is a very bad customer experience. And think about that question with your customers and in your businesses of what are the moments of running out that could be avoided by having insights into the event and the situation on something that the customer isn't routinely thinking about, taking that out of their disappointment. The next opportunity or example from Amazon is, of course, the pretty famous Echo device, right? What's super compelling about this is the Alexa software within it. The form factor is going to change a lot. Amazon's actually allowing other companies to take the software and natively embed it into their products, so like Scout alarms and things like that. Voice recognition is a completely new interface, and I think we will find in B2B and industrial spaces the number of opportunities where hands are busy and where voice, to be able to query, ask for assistance, ask for help, is a great new customer interface. And then finally is this scenario. It's a beta program in Germany between Amazon, DHL, and Audi, and it allows a customer to order an item, have it delivered to their car. DHL person gets a one-time electronic fob, finds the car, opens trunk, puts the product in, fob's disabled, customer gets a notification the package has been delivered, right? A great customer experience, especially with the amount of products now being delivered. You know, doorstep theft is a huge growing crime issue, right? This is a great customer experience. But I think what this really shows, kind of the under the waterline message from a scenario like this, is two things. A, IoT experiences are best when they go across enterprises. And so the ability to create partnerships and create scenarios that have 5 nines capability in real time across multiple enterprises are very real. And the second thing is this: Amazon's finance team was deeply involved with this, but there is no way that you could create a business case that would pencil out the investment to do an experiment like this. So we're going to talk more about making bets in the business. But you have to think through what are those important, small, agile experiments that I need to do in the business, and you know that you will never get a business case up front. And in fact, if you can develop a business case for it, it really shows that it's not an experiment. In operations, I think some of the best scenarios are around worker safety. So the vest is a prototype vest that for a road worker, it gives them tactic vibration when a car is approaching at speed, and it's designed to also give feedback to the driver. And the firefighting report is a fascinating report, and the message out of that report is really about the network effect. And so what they point out is that at the simplest level of the network on IoT, it's about knowing the situation for one particular firefighter, right? Where are they at? What's their operating situation? The health and vitality of that firefighter. But then you take it to the team level. Now somebody in charge of a team of firefighters can coordinate and understand between a team of firefighters. And then the next work is a dynamic emergency situation of a building and all of the participants in that scenario and being able to optimize and coordinate across those. And so it's another example of, as you start with one particular use case, build it in a way that lets you transition to bigger and better use cases, because you will always find the next layer of value. And oftentimes those come from going from an example or a use case of one thing to examples of networked things. And as we know, with the network law, value goes up the more things that are networked together. Who here knows Amazon's original business name? Amazon's original business name was Relentless.com. And in fact, if you go to Relentless.com, it still resolves to Amazon. Relentless, though, is the word at Amazon when it comes to operational improvement and operational stability. Did you know that Amazon was voted as the #1 supply chain company in the world by its peers and by Gartner, because they noted that Amazon, from a logistics and supply chain basis, is both operationally the best as well as systematically innovative, right? So how does Amazon go about always having that operational improvement, right? What do all of these operational programs have in common, right? Whether it's statistical process control or Lean or Six Sigma and your green belts, well, they all require data, right? And what's the hard and expensive thing to always get? Getting the data. IoT allows you to think about getting data at a volume and a veracity that you've never thought of before to help drive process improvement. So when you start having a lot of real-time data in your processes and in your operations, guess what you can start doing? You can start creating rules that allow you to do the math within your operations that transition into algorithms. So this picture here is an example. That little orange guy underneath the rack is a Kiva robot, right? Company Amazon acquired a few years ago. The robot does what it does well, which is pick up a big rack and bring it to a picker, and the picker does what it does well, which is pick a specific item, put it in a box, right? And I think that man-machine augmentation scenario is the one that you're going to most oftentimes see as automation happens in labor. But the other place where Amazon is absolutely relentless as it comes to automating and reinventing work is in all of the white-collar work that goes on. Today, there is nobody at Amazon ordering products. There's nobody cutting purchase orders, right? There's nobody planning what purchase orders to cut. There's nobody planning transportation, deliveries, reroutes. All of that work has been automated to its scale. So IoT provides you one basis for thinking through and putting math into your business processes to always be thinking about how to scale those processes. So an example of new business models. So this engine is a Rolls-Royce engine. Instead of selling or financing an engine to either an aircraft manufacturer or to an aircraft brand, Rolls-Royce now offers airlift by the hour. So when you can provide high operational integrity products and services by leveraging IoT, you have the opportunity, it's not necessarily the right opportunity for everybody, but you have the opportunity to provide more guarantees around those outcomes to the point of not actually selling your product or services anymore, but selling those outcomes. And this is an example. I think you'll see more and more of that happening. It's not the first move for most companies, right? But it does kind of, if you think about it as a journey and you start thinking about where your products and services could go, this is one thing to think about. The other thing to think about was the question we were always asking ourselves at Amazon, which is, what's the platform business opportunity? Everybody here is familiar with AWS, right? Amazon Web Services, the leader in cloud innovation, cloud capability. Most people would guess that AWS came from some strategy that was built around, hey, we're going to take our computing infrastructure, turn it inside out, and disrupt the traditional licensed hardware and software world. It didn't happen that way. When I was there at Amazon, every team owned product definition, software development, and infrastructure. So I had teams that were managing the provisioning and purchasing of racks of hardware within my business. It got obvious, this was like late 2003, that we weren't getting the economies of scale and the operational suitability for infrastructure. So we said, we're going to separate the infrastructure teams from the software teams. And the infrastructure team said, great, we're going to provide you a set of tools to help forecast, manage, provision your infrastructure. And I remember a meeting with Bezos, about 40 people in it, and Jeff goes, this is fantastic, but here's the problem. All of you people know each other, right? You're all friends. And the social norms of getting along mean that internal customers are rarely really demanding customers. So infrastructure team, I want you to turn your capabilities and have external clients. Small developers loved it. Amazon then saw the business opportunity. But the insight is this. Ask yourself, how do I take my capabilities and how would I turn it inside out to have external clients? How would I make it good enough to do that? Whether I do it or not, it will still point out opportunities for improvement and opportunities for innovation in your capability. IoT provides yet another opportunity to ask yourself the question, what's my platform opportunity? Based on the positioning of where your product might be, others might find real value in the types of data that could be provided out of that platform. So leadership principle number 8 is think big but start small. So thinking small is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Leaders create and communicate a bold vision that inspires results. They think differently and look around corners for ways to serve customers, right? Sounds great. But don't confuse thinking big with betting big, right? There is a big difference. Companies who want to innovate figure out a way to make small bets in their business. And so as you think about having a bold vision, you've got to think about how do we downsize the investment so that we can do more bets in the business. Start with a big vision, but build, that minimally viable product to test ideas. So let's transition a little bit, talk about some of the things that we would normally do at Amazon to help build a strategy and a plan. I've worked with one of my partners for over 20 years. I was a partner with him at Arthur Andersen, and then I went to Amazon. He went to another consulting firm, and then we came back together at Alvarez & Marsal. And the thing Steve will tell me that he found most different about me after working at Amazon, he goes, John, you are always doing two things. You are always working to simplify and clarify. And when I think about how things happened at Amazon and how ideas and proposals and projects were presented, that's what we were always trying to do. Before we cut any code, it was always about simplifying and clarifying the communication. So one of the things that leading companies like Amazon do is they understand their investment portfolio. And if you think about what are the most important decisions an executive team makes, it's about capital and resource allocation. So this chart basically has project risk along the x-axis from low, medium to high, and the y-axis is the potential benefit, right? Most companies are pretty comfortable and pretty good at operating in that big project, lower risk, lower benefit side, right? Like that's where most of your acquisitions, that's where most of your projects, when you build a new facility, that's where most of those work. What most companies aren't good at is that upper to the right things, which are the high risk but high potential types of investments. And the number one problem that teams make is they don't recognize that the type of governance and the types of metrics that you need to put around those two types of investments are completely different. And if you try to put your traditional governance and your traditional types of measurements and your traditional reward systems against those high risk, high reward investments, they will fail because people can't afford that level of risk in their career and in delivering those types of projects. So think through what your investment portfolio is and the types of different governance you need on bets in the business versus scaling investments. So the first leadership principle at Amazon is about customer obsession, and working from the customer backwards is always the mindset. So I wanted to walk through a few of the tools and techniques that we would use at Amazon in articulating whether it was a strategy or a plan or proposal, these things. And all of these things you can Google. They're well stated out there. None of this is secret sauce per se. Has anybody here ever heard about the Amazon narrative technique? So Amazon bans PowerPoint, right? PowerPoint is good for this, which is essentially kind of cued speaker notes, right? But the problem with PowerPoint, well, there's really a couple problems. One is that you're always more worried about the real estate management than clearly articulating an idea to whatever degree it needs to be. And it's always tied to a speaker representation of that idea. So all ideas were always done in either a 2 or 6 page narrative format. Those have a couple of benefits. One is it allows for a team of people to work through what is the idea. So it helps them to get clarity and simplicity around that idea, right? The second big benefit is as those plans, those narratives are presented up into management, meetings start with 10 to 15 minutes of silence where those narratives are actually read. They are grokked. They are deeply understood. And then ensuing Q&A occurs, right? And again, it gives the ability to force clarity upon those teams of what's being proposed, and it allows the consumers of that to actually deeply understand it. Most challenges in delivering complex things are because we think we're talking about the same thing, but we're actually not. Like we're talking past each other. So on your big projects, write narratives, sweat the details, make sure that it's super clear what's the customer benefit. The next thing we would do is we would write a future press release. Future press release is well documented out there again. So once we had our narrative, we would write a future press release. The future press release wasn't written for the time of launch. It was written for some period after that, right? And so we would talk about first, what delighted our customers about this project, this capability, this service? Secondly, is we would put in either a business case, or if we couldn't understand what the business case was, how are we going to measure success for this, right? Like what were our hypotheses that we needed to test early on to see if it was a good service for our customers? And the third thing we would do is really where the magic happened. In the third thing, we would talk about the hard issues and the hard problems that we had to solve in order to accomplish these results. We wouldn't talk about how we would solve those because we hadn't done that yet. But getting on paper and communicating to a broad team, sometimes the sensitive issues and the hard problems prepared everybody in the organization for the change, and oftentimes ideas on how to solve those problems came from others. The third thing we would do is we would build a user manual. Before we ever built the product, we would write a user manual, right? Oftentimes, a lot of our products were for developers, right? So we would develop a user manual for those developers, right? Starting with the customer, working backwards, you would think through, oh, this is the type of clarity of the product we were going to build. And then the last thing we would build was an FAQ, a frequently asked questions, right? We would just predict all of the questions anybody, internally or externally, could ever ask us about the entire life cycle of this product and service, and we would write FAQs for it. Do those things, and you will run better projects, and the organization and your constituents, your stakeholders, will be better prepared for what's coming. So it goes well beyond that. What are all the other ingredients? One of the things I think about is team formation, right? So the first is, of course, you need the right technology skills, right? You need architecture, you need security from the start, right? Security by design. You need partnerships. You need skill sets in shaping and forming and collaborating in partnerships. The best IoT scenarios and the best innovation is going to come across enterprises, not within just one enterprise. Understanding partnerships is super important. You need data science and algorithm skills on a team. You need integrated user experience on the team. Every product has a user experience, whether it has a UI or not. You need to have the agile and experimentation methods and approaches. And you need skills that help build business models. There was an interesting article on GeekWire several months ago that Amazon was the #1 MBA hiring company in the country because they need product management and business modeling skills, right? But what's in the center of this? IoT is about making change. And you need leadership skills that have a vision, drive for hard-to-get results, and can bring a team along with it. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is read the Amazon annual shareholder letters. I think those are some of the best writing about what's coming and explaining Amazon's mind. And Jeff is shouting out to everybody, this is how to think about innovation. In his latest one, he started off in a very counterintuitive way, and he said, Amazon's the world's best place to fail at. And he went on to talk about that most organizations do not get this connection between innovation and failure. And although they want the outcomes of innovation, they actually don't realize that they have to do it by setting up lots of experiments, right? In order to do that, though, you have to be able to afford those experiments. So thinking through how you do these in small, agile manners is the key, but also getting leadership buy-in to the fact that these are different types of investments than our tried and true normal scaling capabilities is key. So I want to thank you. Those are a few of the thoughts. And I welcome you to reach out to me. Unfortunately, after this, I got to run home for a birthday dinner. But I hope I gave you some tools and tactics and mindsets that you can put to work today without asking for permission to drive innovation and creativity and better results in your business without asking for permission. So thank you. So we are thankful and grateful for Riverbed for helping to sponsor this. Rich from Riverbed's got a couple of words for us, so thank you.
Thanks, John. I'll borrow your clicker in case I have to hit something. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Rich Hillebrecht. I'm the CIO and CISO at Riverbed. Riverbed is both a partner to Trace3. You may have met some of our colleagues in the VIP lounge yesterday evening. We are also a customer of Trace3 and have been working pretty closely for the last several years with the Trace3 team and leveraging some of the services that you've heard Tyler and others speak about. Coming into Evolve as my first time here, we were talking about the topics of the sessions and got a chance to connect with John, got a chance to read his book a couple of weeks ago. So those of you that may have picked it up yesterday, it's a good read. A couple of things that were really striking, right off the bat, is some similarities to what Riverbed is all about in terms of the technology chain, creating information, et cetera, harvesting that, the network effect. And so it's really good thought-provoking. but also then wearing the hat of a leader of an IT organization, and trying to address the questions that are being posed, in meetings like today. We are living with a tremendous rate of change. We are relied upon to not only, motivate that change, but accept that change and manage that change. And it's a pretty complicated world that we live in. Last week, we had at Riverbed a customer council meeting, and this slide is just one of the slides we used to prompt conversation with about 20 of our largest customers, in the room, dealing with the implications from a management perspective of digital transformation. IoT is a component of that and is now really extending and changing the definition of what is the edge, of the network. If you think about all of the devices that we as IT management handle today and all the transactions that we handle today, when you think of how that explosion with IoT sensors out on the network somewhere, feeding back data that's either actionable locally or actionable based on analysis done in the cloud and some instruction set, it's an increasingly complicated world. And I don't think anyone would argue that the mega trends that we're all dealing with have come together to really create this opportunity. Without the cloud compute power, the storage, would you have the ability to process all of that data? Likely not. If we hadn't really driven, on mobility so hard, we wouldn't be thinking about things in the same way. Using, some of John's, examples about just logistics. One of our customers last week was talking about the challenge they have. A very large retailer, a couple of thousand stores, have moved from a strategy of opening stores to optimizing the supply chain. And optimizing the supply chain and incorporating end user experience in store and integrating that with the online experience. And it's a very interesting challenge for IT, because it's bringing forward all of the legacy, which is usually a bad word, but there's lots of critical stuff that we call legacy in our environments that we have to manage. And now we have to incorporate many more ways of interacting with those systems, the consumption of those services, all with the mind of having what is the user experience that we're delivering. As John said, I think it's a great principle at Amazon. Start with the customer experience first and work your way back. It's a tremendous thought process. But I think as IT leaders, we have to also step up to the plate and understand how do we ensure that the outcomes that our corporations are looking for, right? The functions that you guys support, that we support, their outcomes are all reliant in some way, shape, or form these days on digitalization or automation. And many aspects of understanding whether it's a successful solution, it really boils down to the end user experience with it. Not on the averages, but down to each and every individual. One of my colleagues, Hong Song, is got a nice quote. We've had social media on the slide a moment ago, and today's day and age, he has a phrase that it's a class action suit of one. A single customer that has a bad experience with this product or service that you're offering that gets on and essentially badmouths that particular product, you've got a huge problem on your hands. One of the things that we in our IT organization really committed to a couple of years back was this notion of performance management, which may seem obvious now that Riverbed has moved from a single product company or WAN optimization product out to the edge with SD-WAN and data management, Steel Fusion, et cetera. But the performance management platform really wasn't core for our own internal use. It is now, because we've recognized as an organization that across the board, we have to understand, when I say across the board, across the IT organization, we have to understand how are we managing the experience. We're largely an internal support organization, but we also support our channel partners, a couple of thousand of them, with portals and access to our services, and tens of thousands of customers. So IT is responsible to make sure that this works in a seamless way and that we can continue to support a seamless experience even as we increase the rate of change of what we're introducing by way of business applications and capabilities that our colleagues across the company are looking to roll out. So this notion of how inside the IT organization we organize and we think about managing this experience in essentially a world that is now measured by expectations from the consumerization of IT, right? The enterprise expects that same level of responsiveness down to an individual level. We had to think a little bit differently inside our IT group and assign some responsibilities that we didn't have in the past, including a leader now for end user experience, not end user support, but end user experience. And we've changed our SOPs, and we've changed our development practices, and we've changed our operation interactions with our business partners. One of the things we've done recently as a company, and I was able to consume this as a customer, we sponsored a survey around the importance, and this was done by a third party, of performance management. And in this case, performance management is really about performance of the applications as we deliver them to the consumer. And they really had, I think, the right four capabilities to think about in this domain. The first is business alignment, which is really all about understanding what's most important from a business outcome perspective that we're delivering or supporting. What are the most important capabilities that we're trying to deliver? If we don't have that alignment with whether it's our sales operations team, our manufacturing operations team, our technical support team, then we're not putting our eyes on the most important activities that we have to take care of. Organization. As I mentioned a moment ago, we didn't have a performance management center team. We've actually created a virtual team. We're a pretty small organization, but we've assigned accountability for end user experience very clearly, and that allows us to anchor lots of our activities across the rest of the IT team. And then processes, the more you instrument, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you act on. Having the right SOPs on a day-to-day basis is one thing, but our operating mechanisms that drive continuous improvement for operational efficiencies, as John was saying earlier, get really guided by the insights we have today that we didn't have 18 months ago. And we use those through our quarter-end processes. We're a tech company that has a big hockey stick, of sales at end of quarter. So we have most critical periods where our critical functionality to a critical set of users is most impactful. So we've really orientated lots of what we do around those high criticality points in order to make sure that we're doing our best possible job. And if you're doing that under stress at those high points, you tend to have a better outcome throughout the rest of the quarter because of what you focus on. It also drives our commitments to continuous improvements quarter over quarter and either refactoring the application, up-leveling the infrastructure, fine-tuning the content or training. It has a very much a flywheel effect across a lot of our activities. And then lastly, it is technology. It's enabled by technology. But I think if you think of how your organizations are managing the complexity that we have, I think it's as equally and even more important to think about the other three dimensions before you do the technology spend. Okay? And with that, I think we're at the end of our allotted 40 minutes, and I'll turn it back to Mark.